Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill him.
I apologize for that extremely callous remark.
Last week, before the assassination of Charlie Kirk, before the political violence that spread, Brian Kilmeade from Fox News made an absolutely violent, disgusting comment on air on Fox News. Over the weekend, he apologized in this scripted, fake nonsense. It's always interesting to me. I'm going to play both the offending thing that he said, but also the apology. But it's always interesting to me, the apology that comes swiftly and it's perfectly crafted by lawyers, read from a teleprompter, insincere as all. He doesn't even admit to the thing he did here. But it's always interesting the passion with which the original comment is delivered, that comes out of the mind, that comes from the soul and the heart of the man. That's what's truly in there, not the skillfully crafted, lawyerly apology. If you want to know a little bit more about this is about Brian Kilmeade saying that we should just kill them, meaning mentally ill, homeless people in the United States. A population of people that is comprised of many, many, many veterans, homeless veterans that Brian Kilmeade, in his heart of hearts, thinks should be given involuntary lethal injection and killed. Just kill them. Just kill them, he says. And if you want to know more about someone who actually works with this population of individuals, go check out the video that Brittany Page did over the weekend. She works weekly in a locked psychiatric hospital. She knows this population. She works with them. She toils over their well-being. She's educated and skilled in this. She's an expert in this. Not Brian Kilmeade, not me even. So I'll link to that below. I would really encourage you to watch because it is, like everything she does, just dense with receipts and with evidence and with all that you need to be armed with information to go into your day to talk to people who want to defend Brian Kilmeade. And what are they defending? Well, it's this. Watch this from last week. I was going to talk about this, but with everything going on, it fell to the wayside. But I'm glad that it picked up steam and now he's defending his very job for the horrible things that he said. Watch what he said last week. This is in reference to the brutal killing of the Ukrainian refugee at the hands of ostensibly someone who struggled with mental health issues and went through bouts of homelessness.
We don't have to, we feel so compassionate because you see the mental health crisis happening.
Exactly.
But it's not our job. We shouldn't have to live in fear while they figure out what's going on right there.
Right.
Put them in a mental institution, put them in a jail, and you guys figure it out. But people having to duck and dive on the trains and the buses, walking through the street, this is one case, but this is happening all across the country, and it's not a money issue. They have given billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
That's what's in there. That's what he truly believes. Also, this is the spirit of political dialogue that's engendered, that's encouraged on Fox News. This is it. What you just witnessed. Not what you're getting ready to see, which, by the way, like any good retraction or apology or correction, it comes not on his highly rated, very well watched Fox News program on the week during the week. No. He's not going to be making this apology today on the weekday show with the A-Team. He waits until the weekend on Fox and Friends Weekend to make the apology to a fraction of the people who saw the original comment. Now watch with me And I want you to listen to what he says, obviously, but watch his eyes as they dart. He's reading from a prompter. These are prepared remarks. He doesn't have it in his heart to sit there and speak earnestly about the mistake he made. In fact, listen for it, because he never even really admits to the thing that he said. He never says, I said we should kill them, and I apologize for that. And that's what was sorely needed in this moment. Watch this.
And it actually happened when we were together on Wednesday, Lawrence. In the morning, we were discussing the murder of Irina Zarutska in Charlotte, North Carolina, and how to stop these kinds of attacks by homeless, mentally ill assailants, including institutionalizing or jailing such people so they cannot attack again. Now, during that discussion, I wrongly said they should get lethal injections. I apologize for that extremely callous remark. I'm obviously aware that not all mentally ill homeless people act as the perpetrator did in North Carolina, and that so many homeless people deserve our empathy and compassion. Lawrence, back to you.
All right, thanks, Brian. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yep.
All right, more Fox in the weekend.
Get a load of that language, right? We were discussing the murder of Irina Zarutska. We were having a panel, a highbrow intellectual discussion about it, and how to stop these kinds of attacks by homeless, mentally ill assailants, including institutionalizing or jailing, he said. He didn't talk about that. He wasn't talking about institutionalizing or jailing. You just heard him say involuntary lethal injection, just kill them. I wrongly said, this is what he cops to. I wrongly said that they should get lethal injections. I apologize for that extremely callous remark. And then I love, Brian Kilmeade, thank you for this, brother. I'm obviously aware not all mentally ill homeless people act as the perpetrator did in North Carolina, and that so many homeless people deserve our empathy and compassion. What do you mean? You're obviously aware. How in the fiddle and would we know that you're obviously aware? The only thing we have to go on, Brian Kilmeade, is that they should be involuntarily lethally injected with a poison to take their life, or as you so aptly put it, just kill them. In fact, it's interesting that he's talking to Lawrence here, this guy, because that was the guy on the couch with him, having that heady political discussion about what to do as a policy, as in a country, to deal with people who are untreated in their medical condition of mental illness. It's a medical condition. How should we deal with it? It was that guy. And I'm going to play it one more time, not the whole thing. Right after he says, kill them. Watch how uncomfortable, right as it's happening, look at Lawrence and look how he shifts and looks. He's uncomfortable in the moment because even he knows that what just took place was outrageous.
Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why did it have to get to this point?
Right. I would say this: we're not voting for the right people. In North Carolina, wake up.
He's uncomfortable because he should be uncomfortable. At any other network, Brian Kilmeade would not have a job. He would be fired for such callous, insensitive, horrible, violent remarks. He wants to kill. Who's next? People with depression? People who, by no fault of their own, just the genetic lottery, end up with schizophrenia and hear voices, auditory hallucinations, visual hallucinate. Do they also deserve death, Brian Kilmeade? Or is it obvious that you believe they deserve our compassion and empathy? Or do you believe empathy is delivered at the end of a syringe, Brian Kilmeade? This is the conservative right. This is the Republican Party. This is certainly Fox News. While they cry their crocodile tears over the political violence against Charlie Kirk, this is what's in their heart. They want to kill outgroups. They want to kill otherized populations. Involuntary lethal injection if you're not sufficiently rich, if you struggle with mental health diagnoses. Your apology is meaningless. It rings in my deaf ears, and I hope it does to others.
As I stated, I was being transparent with working with the public on our findings as I had them. I stated in that message that we had a subject and that we were going to interview him, and we did, and he was released.
Man, Kash Patel is doing that fancy footwork right now. He's really, really in it to try to save his job. There are all kinds of headlines that are reporting about the end maybe being nigh for the young Kash Patel, the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, who is absolutely a skillless, feckless goof in the job. Someone with no law enforcement experience, who botched the investigation into the political assassination of Charlie Kirk. They arrested a guy. We got him. We got him. Oh, and that's not the guy. They found another guy. Oh, we got him. We got him. Oh, wait, sorry, that's not the guy either. And now he's taking credit. I got two clips for you here just from a few minutes ago on Fox News. Now he's saying, oh, well, we cracked the case. We solved the case. The intrepid investigation skills of the FBI and the local police and our wonderful partnership. We got the job done. And they didn't get the job done. The kid talked to his dad, who turned him in. Without the family's intervention of betraying their own son, sending him off to a likely death penalty case, a death penalty sentence, we'd still be looking. We'd still be looking. So let me give you two headlines, just the headlines from the Daily Beast. And this has just been in recent days to give you a flavor for what's out there, what's being reported, and maybe what's coming down the pike for Kash Patel. Keystone Kash, I love their little nicknames. Keystone Kash kept Kirk arrest secret so Trump could spill on Fox. The investigation had placed FBI Director Kash Patel and his lack of experience under scrutiny. And it's that scrutiny that I want to talk about today. And that's also something that happened. They arrested Tyler Robinson at like 10 or 11 o'clock the other night. And then the next morning on Fox and Friends, Donald Trump announced it. They held this important information, a community living in fear. They allowed that to take place until the dear leader could go on Fox News and announce it. Here's one more headline. Keystone Kash on thin ice as insiders plot his swift exit. Andrew Bailey, the incoming co-deputy director of the FBI, is being touted as Kash Patel's eminent replacement. Now, I don't know Andrew Bailey. I'm sure he's sufficiently MAGA, so he's probably a turd and not qualified or a decent person for this job. But we'll have to see. We'll wait with bated breath to see what kind of a turd they put in place in replacement of Kash Patel, if indeed that's what happens. But now I got two clips for you from Fox and Friends this morning, where he is really doubling down on taking credit for something that he had no role in whatsoever. The only thing he did was show up and tell Charlie Kirk posthumously that he'll see him in Valhalla. I did a video about that yesterday, which is a dog signal to neo-Nazis and racists and white supremacists. You'll have to see the evidence that I present there. But let's watch this, where he's taking credit for something that he absolutely had no role to play in.
You're absolutely right, and that's why me and the deputy have been quarterbacking this investigation ourselves. There is no one at the FBI that is going to politicize this investigation. There's no one at Quantico or anywhere else that is going to say we are not looking at X or Y. We are looking at the facts, and that is why we are releasing the facts in record fashion. If you go back and look at historical cases like Luigi Mangione and the Boston bombing, how long did it take the Bureau to release information to the public? We're not doing that. Those two manhunts took 5 days, and they happened in downtown major metropolises. We apprehended our suspect in 33 hours because we were transparent and open with the American public, and we're going to continue to do that. So anyone that thinks that the FBI is not on top of its game and that me and the deputy and everybody in leadership in our Salt Lake City field office in Quantico is doing anything politically, I'm not having it. And if you've heard anything else about it, they are lying to you. We're on it.
We apprehended our suspect in 33 hours because we were transparent and open? Is that why? Or was it because the kid's dad turned him in, Kash? You think you cracked the case? This is an indictment in and of itself, that he thinks that he did some kind of gumshoe detective work when it was really just not even a tip from someone, but the kid was turned in. The young man was turned in. Come on. Now, the reason that I think there's legs behind this movement to remove Kash Patel is because the aforementioned, I just talked about Brian Kilmeade wanting to kill homeless people. That same Brian Kilmeade is actually pressing Kash Patel here in this moment. This took place roughly 3 or 4 minutes after the clip you just watched, where Brian Kilmeade is giving him the business about, well, you posted that we got him and that ended up not being true. What's going on here, bro? Watch this.
I came in and I accelerated that process.
So in the 24 hours after, when we were still looking for the guy, I know you posted that we got him. And that ended up not being true. You took some incoming because of that. What led to you posting that? Why did you feel so certain about it? And what do you have to say about the criticism?
No, I appreciate this opportunity. Look, as I stated, I was being transparent with working with the public on our findings as I had them. I stated in that message that we had a subject and that we were going to interview him, and we did, and he was released. The job of the FBI is not just to manhunt the actual suspect who did the killing or suspects, but it's also to eliminate targets and eliminate subjects who are not involved in the process, and that's what we were doing. Could I have worded it a little better in the heat of the moment? Sure. But do I regret putting it out? Absolutely not. I was telling the world what the FBI was doing as we were doing, and I'm continuing to do that, and I challenge anyone out there to find a director that has been more transparent and more willing to work the media on high-profile cases, or any case the FBI is handling, than we have been under my leadership.
You posted that you got him, but it wasn't true. What's up? Well, I was just being transparent. I was just being transparent about all of my failure. You want kudos for being honest about being a loser, Kash Patel? All right, here you go. Here's your kudos. Good job. Good boy. Good boy. Very good. Do I regret putting it out? Absolutely not, he says. Oh, recalcitrance. Oh, that's what we love in an FBI director. This isn't transparency. If you were transparent, you'd say, hey, look, I'm not good at this. I have no experience on this. This is a job that takes more than OJT. You need more than some on-the-job training to become the director of the FBI. You need skills. I mean, even James Comey, for all of his stepping on his own appendage, did a better job. You need someone like a Robert Mueller. You need someone who can actually bring to bear years of experience in the law enforcement space, in the investigatory space, in the leadership space, in the management space. I mean, give me something, some skill set. We don't want the QAnon wonderkin who's spouting conspiracy theories and then runs away with them or from them when the dear leader says, hey, whoa, you're implicating me with your conspiracy theories. I'm also in the Epstein files.
Charlie Kirk did not deserve to be assassinated, but I'm overwhelmed seeing the flags of the United States of America at half-staff, calling this nation to honor and venerate a man who was an unapologetic racist.
Alfred Street Baptist Church is a church in Alexandria, Virginia, just across the river here in Washington, D.C., from where I live in Washington, D.C. And I want to play a couple of clips for you from the 8 a.m. service yesterday, where Pastor Howard John Wesley gave a powerful sermon. And he didn't talk about what actually political violence is, but he's adjacent to it. He's close to it. In fact, let me say this before I get to these clips. Brittany Page just wrote a Substack on what political violence means in the wake of the political violence against Charlie Kirk. But it's not the only kind of political violence. We need to keep our eye on the ball about what kind of policies we can bring to bear to end political violence in this country. And you might not think of political violence in the way that it's framed, but violence is violence. Negative outcomes, death as a result of policy, that is political violence on populations. But I'll put a link below. I would highly encourage you to just at least subscribe to her Substack and check it out. But let's talk about Howard John Wesley, the pastor from the Alfred Street Baptist Church. I'm going to play these clips in reverse because I watched a lot larger segment of his sermon than what was just the viral moment talking about directly Charlie Kirk. And there's another element of this that I want to talk about that kind of aligns with what Brittany wrote. But let me say this. One, it's very refreshing. It's a relief to be able to talk about a pastor and not break out the bat phone to Jesus as though I'm talking about one of these false prophets of God that claim they speak to the Almighty, to you as a conduit from the creator of the universe, the creator of everything seen and unseen. It's nice. It's refreshing, right? So here is Pastor Howard John Wesley talking about the political assassination of Charlie Kirk and that we're not celebrating it. He didn't deserve to die. We're not happy about it. But he's overwhelmed. It's kind of the theme here. Watch this viral moment, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
And I do not celebrate the killing of anyone. Charlie Kirk did not deserve to be assassinated. But I'm overwhelmed seeing the flags of the United States of America at half-staff calling this nation to honor and venerate a man who was an unapologetic racist and spent all of his life sowing seeds of division and hate into this land. And hearing people with selective rage who are mad about Charlie Kirk but didn't give a damn about Melissa Hortman and her husband when they were shot down in their home tell me I ought to have compassion for the death of a man who had no respect for my own life. I am sorry, but there's nowhere in Bible where we are taught to honor evil. And how you die does not redeem how you lived. You do not become a hero in your death when you are a weapon of the enemy in your life. I can abhor the violence that took your life, but I don't have to celebrate how you chose to live. I am overwhelmed.
Let me also say this. I'm not a church-going fella. I'm not a praying guy. I'm not a religious guy. Not anymore. But having grown up in Christian nationalist churches that talked about this being a Christian nation in an evangelical flavor of Christianity, if I was to ever go back to church, if I was to regain my faith, I think I'd be going to a black church. And not for the emotionality of it, even though that does appeal to me, and not because of the good music, and that definitely appeals to me. I still listen to gospel music. Odd, right? It's for the liberation theology. It's for the equality message. It's for the things that I try to live my life based on. It's a message that white Christians who call themselves adherents to Donald Trump should maybe listen to. It's actually the words from the New Testament of Jesus Christ, the red letters in the New Testament about taking care of the sick and the infirmed, feeding the hungry, clothing the poor. It's a message that is Christ-like. This next clip actually came before the one that you just heard, but I didn't want people clicking off because it comes across a little sermon-y. It's not. I want you to stick around. Please stick around for this. But he's talking about being overwhelmed, and he really nails it about they want us to mourn Charlie Kirk and celebrate his life while they inflict upon us violence. He doesn't use the word, but it is, again, as Brittany so poignantly wrote, it is political violence. Again, watch Howard John Wesley, the pastor of Alfred Street Baptist Church in Alexandria, Virginia.
Beloved, I don't know about you, but I came to tell you today, I come to this sanctuary being overwhelmed. You know overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed daily, finding the historical lies of the narrative of white supremacy and the nation that caters to white guilt and forces me to prove the equality of my blackness every day. I am overwhelmed listening to the voices of those who think they have this singular right to define and determine who belongs in America and who is an American when it was my forefathers and my foremothers who built this land. I am overwhelmed with gun violence and mass shootings and threats against historically black colleges and universities that ain't had nothing to do with anything that went down this past week. I'm overwhelmed with the culture of division and violence that this administration fuels and fertilizes with an inability to show compassion for those who are in need. I'm overwhelmed to find out that $75 billion is being directed to the policing and the detention of undocumented individuals while Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security and food assistance and 300,000 black women have lost their jobs under this administration. I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed with ICE raids and Klan rallies and threats against the Smithsonian and corporations backing off of DEI and executive orders and Supreme Court rulings. I'm overwhelmed by folk who call themselves Christian simply because they invoke the name Jesus and quote scripture from the Old Testament, but never love like Jesus, never try to live like Jesus, never apply the Sermon on the Mount, bear no fruit of the Spirit. I am overwhelmed.
That is a message. You know, let's all put our little WWJD bracelets on. What would Jesus do? WWJS. What would Jesus say? And that's what Jesus would say. You can't take from the poor taking Medicaid. You can't take from the sick their Medicare and claim to be a Christian and claim that this is a Christian nation run on Judeo-Christian values, when the values that Jesus talked about are the values you just heard from this pastor. And they demand, they command you, they order you to mourn sufficiently Charlie Kirk's life, as though it was a life well spent, as though the last words from his mouth were not racism about black people and gang violence. People are losing their jobs, we're going to get to. The Pentagon is hunting for members of the military who are not sufficiently mournful of Charlie Kirk. They're going to try to make this guy a martyr. They're going to try to make this guy a hero. Glenn Beck is already calling him a civil rights icon. These words are just fucking meaningless to conservatives. Civil rights icon. Anyway, I'll put a link to this entire sermon if you're of the religious persuasion and you want to check it out. Also, check out Brittany Page's Substack. I want to hear from you on this. Let's have a conversation in the comments wherever you're watching this video. You can also call the voicemail line and leave me a fewer than 3-minute voicemail, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily at dollemore.com. I love and appreciate you very much. Please subscribe. It is free to subscribe. Click that subscribe button. Help me spread the truth.
People have got to stop framing simple policy disagreements in terms of existential threats to our democracy.
Another day, another video about Republicans being weird, obvious hypocrites and liars and trying to rewrite history, to whitewash not only the legacy of Charlie Kirk, but also of their very party that has normalized political violence in our culture. Mike Johnson was on Fox News being asked about whether or not there needs to be some soul searching on both sides. Of course, it's always on both sides of the aisle about political violence and what brought us here to this moment in the wake of the tragic killing of racist, white supremacist, bigot Charlie Kirk. And Mike Johnson's answer is just absolutely batshit crazy if you live in reality. Where you would think that, yeah, he's chastising Donald Trump a little bit, but we know that's not true. We know that he will never speak ill of the dear leader. He'll never have a cross word for Donald Trump. Moses Mike, the follower, the adherent of Jesus the Christ, would never lie, would he? Get a load of this answer, and then I'm going to fill your ears and eyes with receipts of exactly how dangerous and violent the Republican Party is and will continue to be, unfortunately.
Do you get the sense there is some real soul searching on both sides of the aisle about how we got here?
I think there is. I've spoken to a lot of members on both sides of the aisle, and there's this recognition that, you know, people have got to stop framing simple policy disagreements in terms of existential threats to our democracy and all these phrases you hear all the time. You can't call the other side fascists and enemies of the state and not understand that there are some deranged people in our society who will take that as cues to act and do crazy and dangerous things. And that's what we've seen in increasing frequency. So members of Congress and all public officials have an obligation to speak clearly into this and calm the waters. We can have vigorous disputes. I mean, Charlie Kirk was an expert at that. He loved debate. But Charlie also advanced another really important idea, and that is that he loved the people on the other side of that table. He was never motivated by hate. He was motivated by truth and love. And that's what we have to do. That's who we are as Americans. That is follows the best of our Judeo-Christian traditions and heritage and our civil society, and we have got to get back to that.
You heard it, right? The admonitions from the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the man who shares his porn consumption with his son, his accountability buddy, right? You can't call the other side fascists and enemies of the state and not understand that there are some deranged people in our society who will take that as cues to act. You can't? You can't call someone fascist. Yeah. Shannon Breen, thank you. Both sides need to onboard this message. Yeah. Maybe starting with Donald Trump, who also is continuously whining about people calling other people fascists.
The divide in American politics today is between these far-left fascists led by Harris and her group. We have a fascist person running who's incompetent. She's a Marxist, communist, fascist, socialist. She's not actually a socialist. She's gone past that. Somebody's got to explain this woman. There's a radical left Marxist, communist, fascist.
Of course. There's a tweet for everything. There's a video clip for everything. And as far as Mike Johnson saying that you can't call people the enemy of the state and then expect unhinged people not to act on that, yeah, maybe we should onboard that information. Maybe since you have the telephone number of the President of the United States, Donald Trump, maybe you should just send him a little text, Mike. Here's a smattering of a mashup of Donald Trump calling people scum and enemies and the enemy of the people, sick, deranged people, doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down, sending his unwashed, low information followers, whipping them into a frenzy, much like he did when he incited a violent insurrection against the country in an attempt to stay in power extra democratically. Watch this.
The enemy from within, all the scum that we have to deal with that hate our country, that's a bigger enemy than China and Russia. One thing I have been, even the enemy, because they are the enemy, what they've said, even that enemy too, and they're really the enemy. They're the enemy of the people, the press. And we have to defeat them. And when I say the enemy from within, the other side goes crazy, becomes a sound. Oh, how can he say? No, they've done very bad things to this country. They are indeed the enemy from within. But this is who we're fighting.
I think we have more of an enemy from within than we do from outside. You know, if you have a smart president, they talk about China and Russia and everything else. If you have a smart president, they're not going to be the problem. We have a bigger problem from within, and they hate it. I noticed today they were saying, he said the enemy from within. Of course, it's Adam Schiff. These are bad people. These are sick people and bad people.
You talk about the enemy within. There's enemies, America's enemies outside. The enemy within is a pretty ominous phrase if you're talking about other Americans.
I think it's accurate. I mean, I think it's accurate.
Who are you talking about?
And,
the enemy?
you know, I heard that. They say, oh, the enemy.
Are you expecting chaos on Election Day?
No, I don't think so. Not from the side that votes for Trump.
But I'm just wondering if these outside agitators will start up on Election Day. Let's say you win. I mean, let's remember, you've got 50,000 Chinese nationals in this country in the last couple of years. Yeah. You have people on the terrorist watch list, 350 in the last couple of years. You've got, like you said, 13,000 murderers and 15,000 rapists. Right. What are you expecting? Joe Biden said he doesn't think it's going to be a peaceful Election Day.
Well, he doesn't have any idea what's happening in all fairness. He spends most of his day sleeping. I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of Election Day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
So Mike Johnson is saying you can't do what you just watched Donald Trump doing. Why? Because it will encourage deranged people to commit political violence. The other thing Donald Trump's doing right now, he's out there. He was just out there yesterday on the tarmac being asked about political violence. And he goes, you can't do this. We would never do this. We would never make fun. We would never make light of political violence. That's not what we do. That's what the other side does. He just said that. I'll play that and then this came to me. And then we'll get to some clips of Donald Trump doing the very thing he's decrying.
They're
Already under investigation.
Have you asked to start revoking the visas of those who have celebrated Charlie Kirk's death? What? Have you asked to start revoking the visas of the foreigners who have celebrated Charlie Kirk's death?
No, we haven't, but we are looking at names. We don't like that. That's not right. We wouldn't celebrate if something happened on their side, and we don't. These are sick people. These are really deranged people.
We would never do that. We don't do that. That's them. That's them. That's them. Remember when Paul Pelosi, the octogenarian with now traumatic brain injury because of a hammer attack on his head? Never forget. Remember this from Donald Trump, who was making jokes about it to an audience filled with gleeful, chuckling, laughing Republicans.
We'll stand up to crazy Nancy Pelosi, who ruined San Francisco. How's her husband doing, by the way? Anybody know? And she's against building a wall at our border, even though she has a wall around her house, which obviously didn't do a very good job.
It's not just jokes. He's not just joking about political violence. Remember the moment where he said, I wonder how Liz Cheney would like it when the rifles are trained at her face.
And I don't blame him for sticking with his daughter, but his daughter's a very dumb individual, very dumb. She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face.
So save it. Save it, Republicans. Save it. Save it, Mike Johnson, you liar, you hypocrite, you stone cold patriot. And look, it's not just Donald Trump making jokes about political violence. It's not just Donald Trump, the husband of the former Speaker of the House. It's not just Donald Trump saying that a former congresswoman, how'd she like it if she had rifles trained at her face or whatever? We'll see how she likes it. It's Donald Trump when he wasn't president of the United States, inciting, encouraging, making jokes about violence, the kidnap, the hog tying, the impending torture and possibly murder of the, at the time, current seated president of the United States. Let us not forget those posts on True Social. Let us not forget the video, this video that accompanied that post. Republicans are doing what they do, which is lie, which is rewrite history. Because when you look at the facts and who they are and what they say and the behaviors they demonstrate, it's not good for them. It doesn't look good for them. So what they have to do is act like none of that is true. That it's the left that's violent. It's Democrats that are violent. We know the truth. They are steadily trying to paint this assailant of Charlie Kirk as some kind of a leftist, even though, after The Guardian reported it, they had to retract that. But no matter, if they can't make a hero out of the guy like they did Kyle Rittenhouse, they will act as though he's one of us. The Mormon kid who grew up in a conservative family, who went as a Halloween costume as a Groiper, as a Pepe the Frog meme, who's a Nick Fuentes adherent. Yeah, he's a leftist, all right. Liars and hypocrites. And this is your accumulation to share it with people when they try to say that bullshit, that nonsense, those lies, that hypocrisy. Don't let them win. Don't let them pull the wool over anybody's eyes in your presence. The other side is now assaulting people, taking away their livelihoods, putting their lives and their children's well-being in jeopardy because they're not sufficiently mournful of a racist, Christian, nationalist bigot who hated Americans, unless you were white and sufficiently MAGA. People are being fired from their jobs for not being sufficiently mournful of Charlie Kirk's death. Apparently, the freedom of speech in this country is under assault. The Pentagon is hunting for members of the military who weren't sufficiently sad about the racist Christian nationalist bigot being killed by a gunman. And it's not just military members, and it's not just healthcare workers and people who have government contracts. It's writers whose job is to exercise their freedom of speech through the free press. Karen Attiah used to be a columnist, an opinion writer for the Washington Post, and she has been summarily dismissed by the Washington Post. The billionaire Jeff Bezos-owned Washington Post, this black woman, the Washington Post no longer has a black opinion writer because they fired theirs. And not for celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. It's decrying gun violence is why she's being fired. It's for providing quotes, direct quotes, accurate quotes of Charlie Kirk. So I'm gonna link to her Substack below. The now unemployed Karen Attiah, this brilliant woman. Go support, if you have an extra few dollars or if you just want to go subscribe for free, go support this woman's Substack. She wrote this, her Substack is called The Golden Hour by Karen Attiah. She wrote, "The Washington Post fired me, but my voice will not be silenced. I spoke out against hatred and violence in America, and it cost me my job." And it starts with these two sentences. "Last week, the Washington Post fired me. The reason? Speaking out against political violence, racial double standards, and America's apathy toward guns." Now, I'm not going to read the entire post. It'll be linked below. I would encourage you to go check it out. But what I do want to share with you are the offending posts on Blue Sky. These rose to the level of dismissal in the minds of the clowns who run the Washington Post. She said this, "I wish I had hope for gun control and that I could believe political violence has no place in this country. But we live in a country that accepts white children being massacred by gun violence. Not just accepts it, but worships violence." But how is that wrong? How is that offensive in any way? How about this one? "Political violence has no place in this country," she stated pointedly. "But we will also do nothing to curb the availability of guns used to carry out said violence. The denial and empty rhetoric is learned helplessness because the truth is America is sick and there's no cure in sight." Wildly offensive, according to the Washington Post. Fireable, in fact. Fact upon fact. Stacks and stacks and stacks of facts from Karen Attiah. Here's yet another offensive post on Blue Sky. "Because America, especially white America, is not going to do what it needs to do to get rid of guns in their country. It will be thoughts and prayers and violence has no place out of a performance of goodness, not out of the resolve to convince their communities to disarm." And as someone who is a gun owner, by the way, but also as someone who grew up in a household with many, many, many guns, more guns that were needed, more guns that could be used, she's right. There are more guns than people in a country of 340 million people. Where's the offensive thing? Where's the wrong thing? Where's the inaccurate statement on the part of Karen Attiah, Washington Post? How about this? "For everyone saying political violence has no place in this country, remember 2 Democratic legislators were shot in Minnesota just this year, and America shrugged and moved on. And here we are still talking about the assassination of Charlie Kirk." If this had just been a run-of-the-mill shooting and like 10 or 12 college kids were killed at this very campus on that same day, the right would be saying thoughts and prayers, but we can't talk about gun control. Let's not talk about it. Let's not politicize it. Let's move on. But because it was Charlie Kirk, the racist, Christian nationalist bigot, their martyr, the guy they want to put in place of Jesus, we're still talking about it. She followed it up with this. "Part of what keeps America so violent is the insistence that people perform, care, empty goodness, and absolution for white men who espouse hatred and violence." She's not wrong. And then finally, she ends with this quote from Charlie Kirk. "Black women do not have the brain processing power to be taken seriously. You have to go steal a white person's slot," she wrote. She accurately quoted Charlie Kirk and was fired for it. Now, she ended her Substack with this, and I will end this video. with this. I have been canceled by Columbia. I have now been canceled by the Washington Post. Institutions may cancel me, but my pen and my teaching will not be silenced. If anything, my voice will be sharper now. Forward ever, backward never. As always, we move. Karen. Go support Karen Attiah. Go find her Substack. Sign up for updates. If you have an extra couple dollars to subscribe, support this woman. The other side is now assaulting people, taking away their livelihoods, putting their lives and their children's well-being in jeopardy because they're not sufficiently mournful of a racist, Christian, nationalist bigot who hated Americans, unless you were white and sufficiently MAGA.
You can't call someone who you disagree with or simply can't win an argument with a Nazi, a fascist, a dictator, a greatest threat to democracy in the history of civilization.
You know who else is out there who has the temerity, the gall, apparently the memory of a fucking goldfish that they don't know that video and audio exists, that we don't have screenshots of tweets and all kinds of evidence of them, that the thing they're decrying now, they're guilty of, maybe the most guilty of. Donald Trump is doing it. MAGA Mike Johnson is doing it. Mark Wayne Mullen is doing it. Tommy Tuberville, everybody's out there doing it. Oh, the left is so violent. I've never called for violence, ever. I've never been adjacent to calling for violence. They outright call for violence. And the other thing they do is call people fascists and act like that's the thing that causes violence. You can't call people fascists. You can't do that, says Don Jr. on Fox News. He gave this interview. I got two clips. One is just a doozy. One comes 50 seconds after the other. Remarkable. But let me just play this for you. This is Don Jr. talking about hate that has been fomented by the Democratic Party. And you can't call someone you disagree with, or you simply can't win an argument with a Nazi or a fascist, a dictator, or the greatest threat to democracy. You can't do that and not expect violence, he says. He whines impetulantly into the ether. But, you know, let me say this. It's interesting that these people don't want to be called Nazis when, if you go to the Democratic National Convention last summer, I was there were no vendors selling Nazi swastika flags. There were no people walking around with a Democrat hat on and a Nazi armband. But you certainly see that with Donald Trump supporters. Men with MAGA hats and swastika armbands. Nazis just marched through the streets of Huntington Beach, California with their eulogy for Charlie Kirk. So if literal fascists are celebrating the life and contributions to our culture that Charlie Kirk brought, what does that tell you? Here's Don Jr. decrying political violence, telling you you can't call someone a fascist. You can't do it, says Don Jr.
The hate has been fomented by those in the Democrat Party, and you can probably play hundreds of hours of those clips. It's coming from the media. Some of them are doing a quick course correction and probably scrub their social media feeds for all the things they've said about Charlie, myself, my father over the last few years. But you can't call someone who you disagree with or simply can't win an argument with a Nazi, a fascist, a dictator, a greatest threat to democracy in the history of civilization, and then pretend you had nothing to do with it when the more radical wing, and there does not seem to be all that much difference to me these days, takes up arms and tries to kill those they disagree with.
It's so ridiculous. First of all, hat tip to Mehdi Hassan for providing these tweets. He didn't give them to me. He posted these. This is Don Jr. This is the same guy who just said you can't call someone you disagree with or simply can't win an argument with a Nazi, a fascist, a dictator, a greatest threat to democracy in the history of civilization, and then pretend you had nothing to do with it when violence comes. You can't do that, he says. But he also says the Democrats will stop at nothing to push their political agenda. The party of Antifa has gone full fascist. This is truly disgusting. Fascist Democrats like Cuomo are openly reverting to their party's historic position in support of outright segregation and discrimination in America. Sad. We all know that rhinos are secretly happy about the indictment, but the fascist left won't stop with Trump. They're power hungry and will do anything to crush their political opponents. If we're ever going to save our country, the entire GOP needs to finally figure that out. And then finally, the fake news gets triggered whenever anyone dares to tell the truth about the fascist lawfare from Alvin Bragg and Joe Biden. What was that again? You can't call someone you disagree with a fascist. Is that right? Is that right? Don Jr., is that right, buddy? That's fantastic. You know what's great about this? This is, even for dumb shit Don Jr., this is remarkable. The clip you just watched of him, the thing that I've just been quoting over and over, you can't call someone you disagree with a fascist, 50 seconds earlier, not even a minute earlier, he said this.
Charlie and I spoke about this frequently, sort of the irony of the anti-fascists these days. They seem to be taking a lot of playbooks out of the fascists, out of the browncoats. I mean, if you don't agree with someone, kill them. I mean, that seems quite fascist to me. So, you know, I wish we would stop calling them Antifa, because there's nothing anti about their fascist tendencies. It's absolutely disgusting.
Come on, man. You can't be serious. He can't be serious because he's not serious. This is laughable. Not even a minute before you say you can't call people fascists, you called us fascist. And that we're taking, I love this. You love when you're trying to make an awesome point. It happens to me all the time. You're trying to make an awesome point and then you flub what you're saying. They seem to be taking a lot of playbooks out of the fascists. You're taking a lot of playbooks, pages out of wait, what? And then it's not brown coats. You're thinking of red coats from the American Revolution, dipshit. It's brown shirts. Don't tell me you don't know the history of the Nazis being a Republican, Don Jr. A lot of playbooks out of the fascists, out of the brown coats. It seems quite fascist to me, he says. There's nothing anti about their fascist tendencies. Maybe I need to break out my classroom aid one more time and provide what the definition of fascist ideology is. What are the hallmarks, the defining characteristics of fascism? Maybe I'll do that tomorrow. Do a little preparation before I do and not just do it so off the cuff.
Many Democratic members of the Senate and House representing New York have stayed on the sidelines. That kind of spineless politics is what people are sick of.
Senator Chris Van Hollen is a man from Maryland. Pretty progressive, pretty good, got his head screwed on. He gave an address, he gave a speech to Democrats in Iowa over the weekend. I believe it was over the weekend. And he is tapping into something that I have been talking about for months and months and months, about we need an opposition. He doesn't say these words, but we need an opposition party. And it seems to me that it's like when in The Godfather, I think I've made this reference before, when Tom Hagen, you know, the Robert Duvall character, he gets let go as the consigliere because we need a wartime consigliere. That's what we need in the Democratic Party right now in leadership. We need a wartime, quote unquote, leaders. People who are in it, ready for the fight, ready for the battle ahead. And I don't mean literal war. I'm talking euphemistically about the struggle ahead, fighting the Republican Party and fascism as they squelch free speech from not just against migrants and people who are permanent legal residents who write op-eds that Donald Trump doesn't like, decrying the wholesale slaughter of the Palestinian people, the systematic erasure of a people in Palestine at the hands of Benjamin Netanyahu, the fascist. Not just them, but military members now, if they're not sufficiently mournful of the death of Charlie Kirk, they're going to be drummed out, possibly face court-martials or non-judicial punishment or just discharge. That's a violation of the First Amendment of the Constitution, and that Congress shall make no law. The government shall have no law abridging the freedom of speech, restricting your ability to exercise political speech, especially. We need leaders in this moment. I know I'm rambling here. Chris Van Hollen really called to the carpet Democratic leadership in this moment, in a moment where we just came off an election. I'm going to ramble a little bit more. We just came off an election. I know people are going to click off this video because this is ultimately going to be criticism of some Democrats. We just came off an election, and I've been very critical of the type of, not all leftists, but and I consider myself very left. I don't know about these labels, but I'm as far left and still be considered a progressive. I'm a Bernie Sanders Democrat. I'm an Elizabeth Warren Democrat, right? So you can't having just come off an election where there's an element of the left that refused to vote for Kamala Harris in the face of Donald Trump, who were part of a team that ushered in what we're now all facing. The kidnapping of migrants off our street, the kidnapping of Americans off our street. But they couldn't vote for Genocide Joe and Kamala the cop or whatever nonsense. You got two choices, dipshits. So that same criticism that I have for those leftists, I have for Hakeem Jeffries. I have for Chuck Schumer, who won't endorse Zohran Mamdani. It makes no fucking sense whatsoever. Do you want Andrew Cuomo, the sexually assaulter of women? That's who you want? You want Eric Adams, the Trump ally? You want Cuomo, the guy who's on the phone with Trump to see how he can get himself in office? Those are the people you want? Because those are the only choices. Mamdani, Cuomo, Eric Adams. That's it. So they complained about the leftists who, frankly, fucked all of us by not voting for Kamala, by not supporting Kamala. And now they're doing the exact same thing. They're going to support the sex pest or the fascist former cop over someone who is dedicated to the prospect of making the lives of New Yorkers better, of advancing good ideas. Here's Chris Van Hollen, senator, seated United States Senator for Maryland, speaking the truth.
Fellow Americans and Iowans, we are at an inflection point. The country's not going to fix itself. The National Party is not going to fix itself by itself. It's up to all of us. It's up to all of you. We need to start now shaping the future. That means winning the key races of 2025 by supporting our terrific Democratic nominees for governor in Virginia and New Jersey. It means in 2025. And it means supporting our Democratic nominee in New York City's mayoral race, Zohran Mamdani. He is focused on ensuring that people can afford to live in the place that they work. That should be our goal in New York City, Des Moines, and every town and city and place across the United States of America. Donald Trump and New York's financial elites see that as a threat. The idea that everybody who works in New York City should be able to afford to live in New York City. And they have mobilized to defeat him. Yet, many Democratic members of the Senate and House representing New York have stayed on the sidelines. That kind of spineless politics is what people are sick of. They need to get behind him and get behind him now.
Listen, it's refreshing to my ear to hear a seated senator say things like this. Not with your milquetoast, nonsense, weak-ass bullshit answers. He's talking about spinelessness in politics. And that is what it is. And let me tell you, there's not much time left. And not like my word has any heft or any weight at all, but I'm one of many. And it's almost time for Chuck Schumer to just resign. It's almost time for Hakeem Jeffries to step aside and let people who have the mettle take control of the party and start leading the opposition to this very dangerous, very real moment we face. Hakeem Jeffries is extra egregious in this moment. I want to read you his response to this little clip that you just heard from Chris Van Hollen. This is the headline from the New York Times. Van Hollen criticizes Democratic leaders for delay in endorsing Mamdani. At an annual fundraiser in Iowa, the Maryland Democrat said he supported Zohran Mamdani for mayor of New York and said people were sick of spineless politics. Now get a load of this. And this, I'm dragging Schumer into this too, because he also has refused. Kathy Hochul endorsed already. The governor finally did so. Chuck Schumer, Mr. Schumer, met with Mr. Mamdani earlier this week and said he would keep talking. Ms. Hochul also said she and Mr. Mamdani have been having conversations. This was before she endorsed. Mr. Jeffries, Hakeem Jeffries, has hinted that he was moving toward a decision, saying he would address the election in coming weeks. Quote, leader Hakeem Jeffries will have more to say about the election well in advance of November 4th, said Justin Chermel, a spokesperson for Mr. Jeffries. Meanwhile, confused New Yorkers are asking themselves the question, Chris Van who? That's the official response for the wannabe Speaker of the House of Representatives who's supposed to be supporting Democratic candidates and instead is playing cute. Chris Van who? The United States Senator for the state of Maryland? Hakeem Jeffries, are you being cute? Or are you being recalcitrant? Are you being an obstructionist to progress? Are your corporate donors whispering sweet nothings in your ear, telling them we can't have this flavor of Democrat in office in New York City? Chris Van who? This is not just assholery. It is regressive. It's admitting they're not ready for the fight. Everything is a scripted, canned line that's been filtered through focus groups and think tanks and strategy meetings and consultants. I want someone who can speak from the heart. I mean, even if it's like a Pete Buttigieg type, who's also not great about Mamdani. What is with these corporate, middle-of-the-road, milquetoast Democrats? We are in the fight for our country, for our nation, as violence is being called for in the streets. Nazis are marching in our streets, celebrating the life of Charlie Kirk. And this is Chris Van who you got? That's what you got? Maybe lead. How about that, Hakeem Jeffries? Maybe do your job, Chuck Schumer. Again, guaranteed this will be the lowest viewed video of the day, maybe of the week. People don't like when I do this, but it is important. Zohran Mamdani, if you live in New York City, is your choice for mayor. It's it. That's a guy who wants people who live in the city to be able to afford to work in the city. People who are working there, they shouldn't have to live in Jersey or in Connecticut and have to commute in, and it costs all that money and all that time and all that stress. It's basic stuff. You should be able to work a job and make enough money to support yourself and your family. How revolutionary. Oh, what a shocking idea. I don't know if I can endorse him. That's pretty radical. Anyway, I'll shut up. I'm sure you're happy. What do you think? Tell me where I'm wrong. I'm open to dissent. If you agree, I'd also obviously love to hear from you too. You can comment below this video wherever you're watching it. You can also call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. I love and appreciate you very much. I will see you next time. Until then, be genuine and take care of one another.